All right. Hey, everyone. Back again for another live stream. This time we're going to be looking at the video from about 2 weeks ago. In fact, 2 weeks ago exactly. So today's Sunday. This was a Saturday 2 weeks ago. This was the club match at Sir Walter. Pretty straightforward, 8 stages. And we can dive right in. If anybody on the stream, I'll be checking the comments at the end of each stage. So if you have any questions about a stage, put it in there. I'll answer them before going to the next stage. And if there's any kind of audio problems or video problems, or you can't hear me, or things are stuttering or whatever, or you can't hear the video, just post it in there, and I'll do what I can to fix it. Okay, so this stage, I guess, as a little bit of a preface to the stage and this match in general, I would say the main place that I was at, and still am with my shooting, is sort of I'm not consciously trying to push speed, but speed is sort of where I'm making gains right now. So gripping the gun harder, being able to run the trigger faster, and just shooting, not necessarily not trying to shoot faster splits, but just having the gun come back sooner so that the sights return and the effect is faster splits, but not necessarily trying to grip the gun and just rail fast doubles, but actually tracking the sight and firing the second shot when it comes back. So in general, I think this match turned out to be fewer points. I shot worse points than is typical for me, which is okay. Not great for a club match, but it was sort of not unexpected given where my practice has been, which, to be clear, was not a lot. Leading up to this match, I think I had one live fire session, maybe dry fired 3 times the week before, but otherwise the summer's been pretty bad for me, just mostly due to job stuff. So I have not been practicing a ton, but where things have been getting better, it's been mostly on sort of grip and controlling the gun, pressing the trigger straight back without disturbing the sights while keeping a good firm grip on the gun. And that shows up in this first stage of the day. You can't really see it in the video, so I'll just say it before it goes. This first target, you step in and shoot him, and there's nothing else from that first position. And I just came in, had the gun up, didn't see my sights, and I pulled the trigger anyway because I was just rolling through that was an example of shooting to a cadence. And so I ended up shooting Charlie Mike on that target just because I hopped in, pulled the trigger twice, didn't really call my shots, and I kind of realized as I was leaving I hadn't called it, but as it is, the math of hit factor just works out that, generally speaking, if you've already left the position, going back for a mic just isn't worth it. And so I was like, that sucks. It's a lesson. This is a club match. Move on. But all right, let's watch the video.
Stand by.
Okay, so yeah, a couple different things going on there. So, like I said, this first target, you can see, try and run it in slow-mo. Oh, let's do this kind of slow-mo. I think you can see in the berm. Ooh, that's not the right spot. I think you can see the dirt splash if you watch over the target's right shoulder. You can see that, yeah, that first shot was just like over its shoulder. It was in, I had the right index on the target. It was just far enough away, and I didn't quite see the sights. So, bummer, but is what it is. The rest of the stage went mostly okay. The reason there's no first-person video on this stage is I actually lose the camera. You can't really see it in this video, but actually the camera, just the Velcro fell off, or the Velcro detached. It's still on the camera. Right as I get into this third position. And so I end up having a little bit of trigger freeze, again, because I'm trying to really grip the gun and rail these fast splits. And to hear trigger freeze, camera drops, come back, and then just set up here. Really, so that was my performance, excuses and whatnot. The real, I think the the takeaways, right? So the points of analysis that I'd offer for looking at this stage if you were walking up and shooting it again. Number one, don't do what I did and sort of step in with so much momentum that if you, let's say you have a light strike on your double action, or your magazine isn't seated, whatever happens, where basically you end up taking a mic because you carry too much speed through this position. And there'll be another stage at the end where this comes up again. But just in general, I fell into the trap of trying to carry too much speed through a position so that if something went wrong and I didn't see my sights, which is the case here, I basically didn't have any way to fix it. I was carrying too much speed. I was already gone. I couldn't fix it. And so doing that, carrying that kind of speed, you'll also see, and again, I'll talk about this. I think it's stage 7, so it'll be the last stage in today's video. But a lot of times you'll see a position where you sort of have to go to the edge of the fault line for one target, and a lot of people will carry enough momentum that they have like 1 foot in the air as they're leaving the fault line, pop, and I don't like that. If whatever it is, ammo issue, whatever happens, if you need to take a third shot or you need to clear a malfunction or something, having to pull yourself back into the fault lines, it isn't worth it, and you don't really gain that much speed. So coming into this target, it would have been not so much speed, because it was a step or two away from the start position, so you were inclined to kind of really push hard. But I think the emphasis for me would be more slow and steady. So instead of pushing hard out of the start position, just get the gun up so that and just roll into the position. So as soon as I had both feet in the shooting area, I could shoot twice, but not carry so much speed I'd take the mics. And then here, pretty much went to plan. Shoot the steel, don't leave too early. And then this was interesting, where you basically had to shoot these moving forward, or you were just losing too much time in productions. This is one of those cases where even in production, it is, you want to have it in your quiver to be able to shoot on the move, just because on that stage, on that section, you were losing time. There were a fair number of people that posted up basically nice and wide right about here, where you can see 10 shots. So you have 2 through this port. Again, sorry for no first person video, lost the camera. But you basically have 2 targets through the port, and you can see these 3 cardboard targets if you set up wide and far back enough. And so it seemed convenient, but you have to go that direction anyway. Shooting on the move is always easiest when you're going towards the target, more or less, right? These were often not even quite a 45-degree angle. And so you want to be shooting on the move at pretty much any classification level, even in production on a stage like this, and then just calmly get that last reload. And I wanted to be shooting my way into position, even though they were fairly high risk targets here at the end. So almost a slide lock here, and I'm doing my reload, and I want to be up on these. There were definitely a little bit of overlap of the A zone with the no shoot, but still have the gun up early. Don't be, posting up hard. Don't be trying to run there, stick the reload, and then post up hard. Come in smoothly and shoot as soon as the sights are ready. So, pretty straightforward stage. I just came out of the gate swinging, and it burned me, but I kind of reeled it back a little bit for the rest of the day, and overall the points improved. Well, the mics went away. I still had some stages with rough points, but.
Are you ready? Now stand by.
Trigger freeze, just trying to grip too hard, didn't reset the trigger, and just being distracted by the camera falling off. Yep. Which, as you'll see in the next live stream for the NC section match, which was a week after this, same thing happened there on the second stage of the day. And so that just became sort of a point of focus. Make sure the camera is really securely attached. I've been using the same attachment mechanism for over a year now, I think, and I've just gotten complacent about it. And so I just kind of stick it on there. It'll be fine. And so having it fall off twice in 2 matches back to back was, it was just one of those things where you say, all right, this is clearly a problem. Make sure to spend a little bit of focus on it and just make it go away. Don't have it keep occurring. All right, stage 1. So I really made put an emphasis on that plate rack. It doesn't really come. I mean, it comes through a little bit on this camera here, but in the daylight, those plates are fairly hard to see. Obviously, we're the second squad to shoot them, so they're already shot up a little bit. We didn't repaint them, and so it's very easy to have your nice bright front sight that's got the sun really illuminating it wash out the fairly shaded plates back there. And so I was really, especially after last month, I was really not trying to particularly go fast, just let the sights come back, and when it was back on the plate, shoot it. So I really was not trying to run this particularly quickly, but just go one for one and not end up in a situation, especially like last month, where I'm trying to leave the position and I'm doing the popper dance, right? Pull off the last target too early and have to come back. A little one-step reload. And coming into here, I was really trying to grip the gun. I called one bad shot, so I made it up. And coming into here, similar deal. I was really trying to grip the gun and let the sights return, but you'll notice, especially in this last position, the splits, even though the targets are of roughly equivalent difficulty until the end, the splits vary just because the gun is not recovering the same for each target. So this first target, it's a little bit slower. Second target, it's quicker, and then it slows back down a little bit. Just watching the sights, not pulling the trigger on any kind of cadence, but just watching the sights. So again, with these first two arrays, with the plate rack, come on, update the preview. With the plate rack, I was just trying to go one for one. And then with this array, obviously the two wide open targets on either side are trying to pull you in and trap you into going fast, and then you throw a no-shoot on the middle one. And so just trying to sort of maintain a sense of control through those targets. And then when it gets to the end here, or the second and third positions, just rail on them. They're open targets. You can come in shooting and just really get, not so much shoot quickly, but grip the heck out of the gun, so that when it's time to run the trigger, the sights are just returning well, and then call the shots. So you'll notice in this position, I shoot 2 on the left, 2 on the middle, 2 on the right, and then make up a shot on the middle because I just called it bad coming in, and then I'm out of there. Did it work? Not particularly. So you can see in the lower left, racked up a lot of Charlies and Deltas on this stage. So the speed was still not entirely under control there. But this is where I'm sort of pushing. It's in these kinds of situations. Not necessarily. I mean, you don't see a lot of. Where is it? You don't see a lot of necessarily arrays like this, especially at matches around here where you just have 3 targets kind of all right next to each other. Now, that said, when you do, you might as well burn them down, but you're not going to win or lose the stage on an array like this. Really, it's more about the arrays like this, where you're moving a little bit. You can't see all the targets all at once, but they're not high shot difficulty targets. But if you can grip the gun and run it efficiently, then you can sort of flow through the position, shooting each target fairly quickly, and move on. Alright, this was a pretty high hit vector stage here. But because you started up in that far left corner of the stage, basically you had a few options. Well, you basically had 2 options. You could go clockwise or counterclockwise around the stage, but the idea was either way you were going to do it. The targets, you had to cover enough ground that you would there was a serious advantage to shooting on the move, again, regardless of division. Now, you can see here, 10 Charlies dropped a lot of points, again, trying to do too much at once. I'm gripping the gun, but it's still bouncing around a little bit too much. So I'd really like to tighten those points up. But on the whole, the actual shooting on the move here was pretty happy with. And that last position there, that's actually something sort of I kind of made the conscious decision just to go pull the trigger as fast as I could, pretty much. I mean, with control, not literally physically as fast as I could, but that's about as fast as I can shoot. And these were, I mean, so the wall sections are 8 feet long. So, I mean, on the diagonal, these might be 7-yard targets. So they were pretty close. They were open targets. And I thought, all right, come in and just rail on them. Just see what you can do. And that's where I picked up a fair number of Charlies. I think that was probably 4 or 5 of the Charlies was just those, which is ironic because they were some of the easier shots in the stage. But this was, again, a conscious moment of pushing. Kind of knowing, all right, I've got the state match in a week. What can I do? If I just come into a position like this and just rail as hard as I can, what's it going to look like? And in this case, the lesson was it's going to look like a bunch of Charlies. So I didn't do that. But that was a conscious decision just to come in and, I mean, even the transition across. So let's see. So you can see, so, they're not going from target 1 and 2 and then to 2 to 3. It's not an insignificant transition, but the splits are almost imperceptible. I'm just running the gun, as fast as I can. And so it ends up, definitely costing me some points there. But this was obviously a not necessarily a hoser stage, but this was going to be a very fast stage with a lot of fast shooting. And so I committed to that. And, the lesson was tighten up the points. Keep gripping harder. And, in retrospect, I'd be curious to look at the hat cam footage. My memory of sort of where the hits were is that they were scattered all over. It wasn't so much that I was indexing to the wrong part of the target, so shooting like 2 Charlies right next to each other in the C zone, but that the gun was just still moving around so much. And so, yeah, again, just keep working on grip, but still, the progress is real, which is good. Again, notice I'm not really trying to move too aggressively. Just keep the feet churning. It was pretty easy to overrun in any given position, and so especially here, I'm really trying to get maybe 1 or 2 steps out of the way by the time I'm shooting the first shot. But after that, if I time everything right, I got these first 2 targets, and then just have the gun up ready for the next set as I come around this double stack of barrels, and it's all good. But other than that, just kind of trying to keep a relatively consistent pace all the way through. Obviously, nowhere really to move for those. And then because this was a right-left move, yeah, drop the mag and then seat it as I'm coming into position. So this was definitely the more of a kind of hunt and peck, particularly the first half of the stage here. Remembering where all the targets are. So definitely started to tighten up the points again here. 6 Charlies. I'm pretty happy here with that, especially given some of the shot difficulties out of the gate. There was a fair amount of debate, honestly. Well, I mean, just the way the stage is shaped. At the end, pretty much everybody had to go to through the turnstile, shoot the movers. There was a little bit of debate about whether to try and go for both max traps, but they were both available enough, and you didn't have to wait long enough on them that they were worth it, especially given the shot difficulty elsewhere in the stage. But I think most of the real options on this stage were in this first area. Some folks decided to drive and sort of dive in to this left side and shoot the targets around that target around the left side with the no shoot, and then also let's pull it up so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so there was this target that you could only see basically from that same position where you sort of dove in left, where you could see this target. You could see, come on, this target, and then basically you had to come to that spot to get that target with the hardcover that's obviously backed up with the actual physical barrel hardcover there as well. Now, in my mind, so they would dive in there on the draw and then sort of back out to where I went first. And this is just an example of if there's a tight shot or a tight position that you have to hit and you can hit it one step off the draw, I personally find that it's better just to go straight there, because it saves you having to kind of try and find it later. So to my mind, this first position was a little bit more undefined. It was a little bit more out in the middle of nowhere. And it was easy to define it by just saying, okay, take a step forward from the start position and then run to the fault line, because the fault line sort of gives you a marker to move to. Oops. Let's jump that back just a little bit. But again, just take a step, draw, shoot this guy through the window. This was shooting to 11. Decided to stick the reload there. I could have done without it. Obviously, I thought about trying to program in, okay, do the reload if you have to shoot a makeup, otherwise skip it. But a lot of times, just for trying to get the best, the most consistent, the least risky stage plan, I suppose you could look at it. There wasn't anything else I was going to be doing at that moment than sticking the reload. And so I thought, okay, just reload the gun, get a couple more bullets just in case you need it for the long shots, because let's say you shoot 7, you make the move, you don't do the little reload I did there, and then you put a shot into the hardcover on that diagonal right before you leave. Now you're at sled lock. Are you going to do a standing reload and engage it again? No, you're just going to leave and take the mic. So I chose deliberately the plan that would, if I had to run it 10 times, that would be the least risky. Even if on any given run I gave up a little bit of aggressiveness by sticking what turned out to be an unnecessary reload. I could have shot to 11 there, but just trying to take the plan that if you run it 10 times in a row, you'll get the best average time, not necessarily the best single time. Had to take a little bit of a step back here. That was just one of those things where when you're walking through a stage, you can kind of run through the turnstile, but you don't actually know how much time exactly you'll have before the turners operate. And so, I was just kind of, once I went through the turnstile, I was trying to just carry a slow, steady amount of momentum so that I could, because you had to move a fair bit after you activated the turnstile before you could see this first drop turner on the left here. Or not drop turner. Max trap, clamshell, whatever you want to call it. So I had to carry a little bit of speed, and then I just carried that same momentum through, and it ended up carrying me up past just a little bit. And so I just had to take a nice wide kind of step back once that was done. again, if I could run this stage, if I got a practice run, then, I'd sort of learn and, okay, like, just move a little bit slower coming through the turnstile just so your momentum doesn't carry you. But I wanted to make sure I didn't lose the max trap by not moving enough, and so that was what sort of carried me through. You can see I swing over and have to take a step back, not a big deal. Come down into here. There it is. Oh boy, okay, yeah, so here we are back to some of the kind of going, back to the what happened on the first stage where, just really pushing speed, just trying to grip the gun and run the trigger as fast as I can and see what happens. Classifier like this is actually, the last time I looked, this is actually a very doable classifier. Everybody talks about the 99 series being shot out and everything. Actually, this one has not been like shot to the moon or anything. This is actually a pretty doable classifier if you can just run it, one for one, on the steel and not, the trick is you can't be really confirming your sight picture. The gun's got to be going off almost as soon as it's at full extension. This is just more of like a natural index. Just get the gun out as soon as it's pointed at the steel target, because they are full-size poppers at 10 yards. That's one of those shots that you should be able to make pretty much off the draw. Now, I say that as someone who, as you'll see, doesn't. Not really sure what's going on. There's just something about, again, how I'm kind of changing my grip, that the gun isn't coming out of the holster with the sights aligned perfectly the way I'm used to, and I decided to just go full send anyway, and I end up whiffing 3 of the 4 poppers on the first run here, but yeah.
Stand by.
Yeah, sorry, I paused it in the middle there when I was thinking. But you can see from the, obviously if I'd hit, like, I was running this at a raw time that would have been GM level, if not a hundo. The problem was sights weren't there. So, but this was sort of a deliberate push. I was like, all right, just grip the gun, run the trigger as fast as you can, see what happens. And it burned me. Obviously I cleaned it up in the scope of the match. It didn't turn out too badly. But I think, let me pull up practice score competitor here. Yeah, it ended up being a 56% run just because the time was so bad, and shooting Charlie Delta on the paper target, which wasn't so much an effect of the splits, which were the split on the paper target, which was pretty much, again, as fast as I could pull the trigger. It was more just I indexed the wrong spot, and so I ended up basically shooting 2 shots right on the Charlie Delta line low. So obviously I can hit the steel targets if I take my time, but this is all, again, part of seeing, okay, how much can I get away with if I just grip the heck out of the gun and run the trigger? Still got to see the sights. Still got to have just enough patience for them to come to you before you start running the trigger. Even if your grip feels good, you can't just assume that the sights are going to be there. And, once they are, then run away. But then walked over. So this was a double bay, obviously, and so loaded or reloaded the gun, and then ran this stage where I basically just ended up doing the same thing, just outran the sights. One of the mics was on one of these swingers on the right side, and then the other mic was actually on this paper target that's kind of wide open over to the right of the bay there, just moving across. I just outrunning the sights, just going absolutely full send, and yeah, you can see it, the dirt splatter here. Well, I'll let it play. Yeah, and then I think I got out of order too, so I only even shot one of the swingers once, just because I was just pushing so hard. But where is it? Yeah, so first shot on the paper target, you can see the dirt splatter just over its shoulder. Second shot is off in the dirt, like I'm already pulling the gun off the target, because I'm just trying to run it as hard as I can, and didn't work. Took a bunch of mics, took a bunch of deltas, but that this was the point of the match. Run things, see see where your practice has gotten you, kind of figure out what level of aggression you can actually get away with, and this was way too much. Yeah, I didn't even shoot at the swinger a second time. Just stupid. Okay, but back in kind of serious shooting mode. So we get up to this field course. It's 32 rounds, and this is one where I'm like, okay, back to normal. Grip the gun, call your shots, see your sights, and this one obviously went fairly well. Only 5 Charlies for the whole thing.
Yep. Bye. Bye.
So in one sense, this is kind of a boring stage in the sense that, from a shooting perspective, I'm shooting almost everything flat-footed. And I would say, even for a lot of high cap guys, anyone pretty much except open maybe, was doing a lot of sort of flat-footed shooting. But the thing that was sort of most interesting about this stage to me is, I'm not sure if you can really tell from the video here, but if you sort of had an overhead view of this stage, it's sort of shaped roughly like a W. So you have this point that comes in towards the middle that you have to move around, and then you've got these sides where you have to shoot around, and then in these sort of interior sections as well. And looking at it, especially from a production perspective, where I've got 10 rounds in the gun, this was actually the best way I could find to slice it up. And the cool thing about it is it ends up being a mirror reversed plan. So it's basically 7, 9, 9, and 7. So 4 magazines total. And in each one, I'm not necessarily shooting all the shots that are grouped together logically, right? So you come into this left position, you've got 2 paper targets, and you've actually got a third one right here. And what I really wanted to do was, and a high cap shooter, potentially even production 15, could have driven in, sort of moved forward to that front fault line, shooting that target moving forward, and then shot. There's another target to the left of it, and then this popper over here to the far left. Kind of give you the first person sense of what that looked like. Oops. So yeah, from here, coming in, you can shoot these 2, and then you've got that target available to you. But then you could also just snap to your right and see these 3 mini poppers. And the way it worked out, just looking at it for me, okay, yeah, here you can actually, this kind of side-on view, you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the W, where you can go all the way to the front left here. You've got this kind of middle position where you could see a fair amount depending on how far deep into the position you got. You've got this point backward, and then you've got the mirror reverse over there. And if you got up into this middle position pretty deep, you could actually see both pairs of these shoot targets flanking a no shoot. And so potentially, if you were shooting a high cap division, say carry optics, or you've got the dot, you can shoot a little more confidently, and you've got the capacity. You could have an 11 round position there where you shoot both of those pairs of targets. Just to give a reference, yeah. So there were 2 pairs, two setups like that that you could potentially shoot if you sort of committed deep to the port. And then obviously you can see these poppers are over here off to the left, just to the left of the frame. You couldn't really shoot those So you had to go to at least the port from both sides to get the poppers. But potentially, if you had more rounds and you could commit more deeply to the port, you could pick them all up. But again, to go back to this view, what I kind of liked about this plan is I'm actually not kind of following the contours of the stage, zigzagging in and out. I'm basically, from this position, I'm shooting, staying fairly far back, and then I'm moving directly, if you think of the stage on sort of a uprange, downrange, left, right position, I'm basically moving straight to the right. I'm not moving towards the port. I'm sort of moving in just enough that I can see this pair of targets flanking the no shoot, and shoot that through what, by the when I hit the right spot, it ends up being a fairly narrow view, right? But by sort of staying back, it stops me doing a lot of unnecessary forward and backward motion. And I'm basically, once I'm in the shooting area, I'm shooting in basically a straight line, going left to right, and just stopping it at 4 different spots along the way. Again, not the most interesting stage in the sense of options and shooting in and out. I mean, there were a lot of options. There were so it is an interesting stage in that sense. More just the fact that a good deal of the shooting was very static. It was very flat-footed. But I was actually really happy. I looked at this stage for quite a while, actually, just because I couldn't figure out a good way to slice it up without shooting to 11 with a bunch of steel, or taking a bunch of high-risk shots on, again, these targets at the back, and then shooting the 3 poppers and shooting to 11. It all felt too risky. And so when I found this way where you just go to 4 positions, basically in a straight line, 7, 9, 9, 7 round counts, so you'll have some extra rounds. You'll top up that +1, even if you do shoot to slide lock on 1 mag for some reason. That worked out to me. That ended up being quite happy with that plan. And there was a little bit, you could be a little bit aggressive. It's like coming out of this position, reload, get the gun up, and then as soon as so I'm not totally settled in, but as soon as the front sight is clear of the snow fence, just start shooting. So that's why I chose to come in on those, because I could be a little bit more aggressive than if I came in on the poppers. Yeah, a couple makeup shots on the poppers, just pushing the gun sideways, pulling the trigger. But yeah, you can see I've hit the spot just right, set up nice and wide, so I'm not having to pick up my feet and reposition. And I can just push out of position, come in. Probably should have picked up my feet there. So in both of those positions where I'm turning to shoot the poppers, you can see I'm actually, if you think of the sort of cone coming from my toes pointing outward, both in that position, and then if we zip back to this position, yeah, well, okay, I did turn there, and it didn't help me. I still had a couple makeup shots, but I think that was the right thing to do. If you see, just by not sort of setting up too hard in that first position, I just sort of had to just turn my hips, just lift my feet, and just turn them a little bit. I think that was the way to go.
Yep. Stand by. Are you ready? Yep. Stand by.
All right. So this was a little bit more back to pushing the speed, not being nearly as careful with the actual shooting. And you can see, so if I separate out the steel, which is the 6S here, of the 18 shots on paper, only 10 were alphas, which is not not good enough, not in production. And you can tell just if you just listen to the cadence of the shots, like I'm running almost all the paper shots pretty hard. Now, some of the shots, so like coming into this first position, I'm pretty much expecting 2 Charlie on this guy. I'm maybe I should be aiming in and going at least for the lower edge of the credit card and trying to pick up at least one alpha. Maybe that's a change I should make, but at least for this, I was just coming in, trying to have the gun up and ready to shoot. Again, as soon as it cleared the snow fence, and just get 2 hits and get out of there. And like I said on the first stage, this is one of those where a lot of people, you basically had to have a foot within a couple inches of the fault line, if not touching it, in order to be able to see this target. And so a lot of folks kind of came in with a lot of speed, and they actually used the momentum to carry them outside the shooting area and then come back in to the front, which I didn't like for 2 reasons. One is leaving. If you have jam, if your gun goes click, if you feel you dip the shot into the no shoot or something, where you feel you haven't missed anything, then if you need to fire a second shot, you don't have the ability. You've already left the shooting area. And so for me, coming into that target, I am decelerating to the point where I want to be stable by the time I get to it. So I'm not running until I see the target and then I shoot it. I'm looking at it through the snow fence. I know when it's coming to me. And so I'm just prepared for that. And I have the gun up, and then as soon as it clears the snow fence, I start shooting. So I get a good start, but then I'm already starting to decelerate. Gun is up. And obviously you can see there I'm if I needed to shoot 10 shots, I'm perfectly stable. I'm not likely to fall out of the shooting area. I'm nice. Yeah, I'm stable. I can shoot for as long as I need to, start to shift my weight back out and come to here. This middle section I didn't visualize as well as I should have, in the sense that you can see I'm kind of jumping around. It would have been much better to just sort of smoothly stay low and move through it. So I kind of skip, shoot that guy, push off again too hard, have to settle back down. Not great. And then here I'm just trying to run, there I'm basically not even really, trying to get alphas. I'm just like, oh, this guy's at, 7 yards or whatever. Just put 2 on him. And, I can't say I remember what the hits were. I don't know that I got to see that target, but it wasn't great. And then coming in here, so this is sort of the second reason I didn't like going outside the fault lines and coming back in. I wanted, anytime you're coming into a position, you have the option to shoot your way in. If you're backing into a position, if you're going around and you're having to sort of step backwards into a position, you basically have to get both feet in the fault lines and then set up and start shooting. Whereas here, I wanted to come in, and you can see I sort of swing wide out and then come in straight towards these targets. So I've already got the gun up. I'm not shooting before the sights are ready, but I've got the sights up and I'm looking at them, and as soon as I see a good sight picture on one of these poppers, I start shooting it. And so I kind of swing wide and then come in on those so that I can start shooting sooner, instead of having to back up into the shooting area, plant both feet, then start gripping the gun and shooting those. So that was just kind of the way that one broke down to me. And this was actually I obviously in a lot of stages like this, you're tempted, okay, go left first and then right, especially as a right-hander. It was someone on my squad that had the idea, if you go right first, then what that ends up letting you do is, when you're in this back left corner, you're not having to run around the wall. From here, it's just a straight push into the last position. And so even though this wall is kind of inconvenient in that it cuts the shooting area in half, by going right first, it basically removed that. It took that out of the equation. Every movement you were making was in a relatively straight line. You weren't having to duck around a wall or something like that. And so I was just I don't know. It made the most sense to me, and I ran it, and I would run it again. I think this was the way to shoot it. The only execution changes I would make would be in the middle there, like I said, maybe getting a little bit closer to the port, just so you have a bit wider of a view. The further back you stand from a port, the more precise your positioning has to be, and there weren't really any good positioning landmarks, for hitting the right spot, and so it probably would have saved me a little more time instead of moving and stopping and moving and stopping. If I'd just moved a little further forward into that port, I probably could have shot it a little bit quicker with a little bit less sort of back and forth unsettledness of the sights. But definitely would run this plan again. Just not be as jumpy moving through that middle section. And aim a little bit more on even the easy targets. You gotta get to your alphas. If they're the easiest ones, it doesn't really save you that much time. I mean, maybe I started shooting this outside target, a couple tenths before than if I'd actually confirmed my sight picture. But if it cost me a Charlie or a Delta, then was it really worth it? So, like I said, this match came into it without a lot of practice and was really pushing speed and seeing what I could get away with. As it was, points were pretty bad on most of the stages. Let's see, scrolling through stage 3, I had 6 Charlies. That was this one, the kind of back and forth hunt and peck one. So those were okay points. And then stage 6 which was this big field course where I was taking the effort to aim, especially with those tight partials. And honestly, with the alpha being right up against, or the A zone being right up against the no shoot. I don't know exactly how many Charlies I took on those, but only having 5 for the stage I was pretty happy with that. But that's the match. Nothing too big. Definitely the sort of preview of a sort of breakthrough next level of speed that I feel like I'm starting to tap into, and really I think manifested itself in a much more controlled way at the NC section match, which we'll do next time. But that's all I've got. Anybody have any questions? All right. I think it's been a pretty quiet one. We'll try and do the next one for the NC section match here in probably the next couple days, maybe a week from now, just depending on how things go. But I'll try and get it announced ahead of time. And thanks everyone for watching.